This antique market ended up having a ton of crazy stuff, so come along with me and find out what games I found. First off, I found this 3D printed Pikachu duck, which was a little too expensive, but then speaking of too expensive was this Pikachu Build-A-Bear. I left that behind really quickly, and then I found this wire rack in the middle of this booth that had a bunch of different Mario figures in Ziploc baggies, but nothing I had to have there. And then right above that was a bunch of PS2 games where I did end up getting Future Tactics for the PS2 for $5 complete, which is not a bad deal. I looked through here for a little bit more and didn't find anything else that I didn't have in my game collection. Even ended up finding a Smash Bros for the Wii U, but ultimately all I ended up grabbing was this Future Tactics game, which looked pretty interesting. Then it continued on to this next booth where I found this Mario, which this booth needed to be restocked. It had been pretty bare and there wasn't any new games here. There was like a few in this corner, but nothing worth picking it up. And then I ended up continuing to my buddy Nick's booth where, I picked up some good stuff. I looked through his booth for a while, to be honest, probably too long, but I did end up finding a bunch of awesome stuff like this Super Mario Bros. 3. He only wanted $4 or $5 for it, which is absolutely awesome. And then I ended up kept looking here and there and found a few more things here. I wandered a little bit because quite frankly, there was a ton of NES boxed games. Then an Atomic Purple Game Boy Color here. I didn't need it, so I left that behind. I looked through the PS2 games down below, and I did end up finding EverQuest Online Adventures there, which was a pretty good deal for only $4. But then I continued on, and that is when I ended up finding Guitar Hero 5 here for the PS2. I didn't pick it up, but there were a bunch of consoles in his booth as well that were actually pretty good priced, so if I needed one of these, I would pick it up. Found some Pokemon VHS tapes, which is pretty cool. And then to the right of that, I ended up finding this fat Pikachu for $10. I ended up grabbing this to support, but this thing is definitely derpy looking, which I think is hilarious. This is all the stuff I ended up grabbing from his booth. A few NES games here. These were all really good prices. They all needed a clean and had been untested, but it's NES games. They're gonna work. So I continued on. I saw a few things there. And then this booth, which usually doesn't have anything good, had completely changed and had a ton of awesome stuff here. I ended up finding Guitar Hero 3 here for the PS3 for $5, which is a pretty good deal. Then I turned to the right, and that is when I noticed Tomb Raider 3 big box PC game for $7. Of course, I'm gonna pick that up.